I'm the greatest cultivator alive. Been lying low for years. Over time, the cultivation world started producing its own sword masters and spell wizards, and talk about me pretty much faded out. Until one day, some idiot blasted through my barrier and trampled my vegetable garden. He was sobbing like a little kid, apologizing while trying to fix the fence he knocked over. I finally got into Zhuantian sect, but nobody wants to take me as their disciple. They all say I'm too dumb to teach, but my mom always said I had crazy talent. I looked at this kid, couldn't sense a single trace of spiritual energy off him. Crazy talent was a real stretch. But he would not shut up, so I took him in. Turns out he was a Chaos Dao body, one of the rarest in 10,000 years. Those blind idiots at Zhuantian sect almost destroyed a once-in-an-era genius. 5 years passed. Zhang Xiaomian went from a regular girl who couldn't even draw qi into her body, to a graceful young woman. Her cultivation had steadily reached the late golden core stage, and every day besides training, she helped me tend the garden. Cooking, washing clothes, mountain life was rough, but she never complained. One day I came back from fishing, and found her using a little water guiding spell to water the vegetables. Her technique had gotten pretty smooth. I called out to her and she ran right over, taking the fish basket from me. "Master, you're back!" "Your cultivation is solid now. Time to head back down the mountain," I said, keeping it casual. She froze. The smile on her face vanished instantly, and her eyes went red. "Master, are you getting rid of me? Go back to Zhuantian sect." I ignored her tears and kept going. 5 years ago, they called you trash. 5 years later, go back and show them they were blind. My disciple is not carrying the trash label forever. She bit her lip, eyes full of reluctance. "No buts," I said. "No room for argument. Go take back what's yours. The people who look down on you, make them look up to you." I pulled out an ancient jade pendant from my robe, carved with a single character. A protective artifact I'd tempered with my life source blood for 100 years. Put it on. I tied it around her waist. "There aren't many people left who can take your life. Now go. Come back when it's done." Zhang Xiaomian knew she couldn't win this one. She nodded through her tears, kowtowed 3 times. "Take care, master. I won't let you down." She left, glancing back every few steps, until her figure finally disappeared at the end of the valley. Silence settled back over the mountain, like nothing had ever happened. After she left, life went back to its quiet routine. Every now and then I'd think about her fumbling around with a watering can, but other than that, nothing changed. That peace barely lasted 10 days. One afternoon, I was watering a fat little cabbage when my chest suddenly seized up. It felt like an invisible hammer slammed into me. The ladle crashed to the ground, water splashing all over my pants. It was the jade pendant. A bone-chilling killing intent surged up from somewhere deep inside me, a feeling I hadn't had in 10 years. That pendant was tempered with my life source blood for a century, and carried a sliver of my soul. Even a nascent soul monster would have to get through it before touching Xiaomian. To shatter it, whoever did this had to be at least God transformation level. But someone that powerful has a divine sense strong enough to pick up my aura on that pendant. They knew it was mine, and still made a move. They were coming for me. Perfect. I walked to the center of the garden, where a crooked wooden stick had been planted, something I threw in 10 years ago to support the bean vines. It had been beaten by wind and sun for a decade, and looked like it'd crumble if you breathed on it. I grabbed the top and slowly pulled it from the wet earth. As the mud peeled away, a cold glint flashed in the sunlight. The rotting bark crumbled off piece by piece, revealing a rust-covered blade underneath. And on that blade, almost buried in rust, were 2 ancient characters. Wen Tian, 10 years without blood. I wonder if my old friend's been lonely too. I carried the sword over to the eaves where a cracked orchid pot sat. The plant inside long dead, nothing but dry dirt left. I kicked the pot apart. In the flying dust and shattered clay, I dug out a bundle from the wet dirt, wrapped in oil paper that had rotted so badly it turned to ash the second I touched it, revealing a stack of yellowed, blackened talismans inside. The cinnabar markings on them had long since faded, giving off a heavy, stale energy. I tucked the talismans into my robe and stood in the courtyard, sword in one hand. 10 years. A full 10 years hiding in these mountains. Has the world already forgotten my name? Forgotten what it feels like to have a sword hanging over their heads? A bunch of arrogant fools built their sect right under my nose, call themselves a righteous order, and now they're bold enough to touch my people. I stepped forward. My figure vanished from the valley in an instant. Looks like it's time for the world to remember the name Lu Beimu. The faint energy left from the shattered pendant pulled me east. I didn't fly, just walked, unhurried. Each step, and 100 miles of mountains slid away behind me. 10 years in seclusion, and the world's spiritual energy had clearly thinned. The cultivators coming up these days weren't exactly impressive either. I passed a roadside inn in the mountains and caught a few young cultivators chatting. Sharp outfits, flashy accessories, noses in the air, clearly from some big-name sect. "Did you hear? That trash from Zhuantian sect, Zhang Xiaomian, somehow managed to build her foundation during her training trip outside." So what? A nobody who can't even release her spiritual energy is still bottom tier even with foundation building. And I heard she had the nerve to injure senior brother Gu Yunfei. Who does she think she is? Senior brother Gu is the sect master's personal disciple, Heaven's chosen. That trash had to have used some dirty trick. Word is the sect already dragged her back, and she's being interrogated at the punishment platform right now. My hand paused on the teacup. I set it down, walked calmly over to their table, and asked, "How do I get to Zhuantian sect?" The guy in the fancy robes looked me up and down. rough cloth, rusty old sword, and his eyes dripped contempt. Who are you? Xuantian sect isn't a place people like you just ask about. Get lost, you're in the way. I didn't say anything. I just flicked my finger. A barely visible strand of sword ki shot from my fingertip and swept silently across their table. They froze, then panicked. Every prized sword hanging at their waists had snapped cleanly in half, the cuts smooth as glass. Broken blades clattered all over the ground. None of them even saw it happen. The guy in the fancy robe went white as a sheet, hand shaking so hard he couldn't control it. So, still want to tell me how to get there? Same tone, calm as ever. They scrambled over each other to point me in the right direction and didn't dare say another word. So this is the rising generation of today's cultivation world. Can't even take one of my most basic sword strikes. Pathetic. Following the direction they pointed, in less than half an incense stick's time, a massive mountain rose before me, its towering gate carved with 3 sweeping characters, Xuantian sect. This young sect looked full of energy and ambition. Too bad, all of that ends today. The gate was absolutely packed, row after row of people, not a gap in sight. I slipped through the crowd without effort and caught sight of the scene at the center of the plaza. Jiang Xiaomian was chained to a black stone pillar with chains as thick as your arm. She was covered in blood, her once clean robes torn completely to shreds. Deep lash wounds, some cutting right down to the bone, were exposed all over her body. Her breath was faint, her head hanging limp. She was barely conscious. Standing in front of her was a sharp-looking young man, dripping with arrogance. That had to be Gu Yunfei. He was holding a long whip crackling with lightning. He looked down at Jiang Xiaomian with pure contempt and satisfaction. Talk. Where did you learn that dark technique? Gu Yunfei cracked the whip down, and lightning exploded on impact.